everybody, fall in for the first episode of Tactical Plastic Report, where I talk about my game, Army Men, a game of tactical plastic. Today, on our first episode, I want to dig into a misconception about this game, and this is something that I have come across time and time again, both from new players, from people who've just seen the cover, or from people who've just heard the name, and I feel it's important to address, it's important to talk about, because a lot of people have made assumptions about the game and moved on without ever actually checking it out once they made said assumption. And I feel that means that they're missing out. So I wanted to at least try to correct the record and make sure that everybody moves forward and makes their decision based on accurate intel. Now, if you haven't seen the cover of the game, take a look at it. As you can see, it's designed to look like a military training manual, the sort of stuff that you would get in any branch of the US military that talks about various topics. However, if you open up the book, you'll find it's full of some really cracking artwork, and it's depicting, well, plastic people doing plastic things in a plastic world. That, combined with the title and its similarity to a video game franchise that has been brought up more often than I care to recall when running the Kickstarter for this game, has led a lot of people to believe that this is essentially Toy Story the RPG, or it's something similar to the film Small Soldiers, where you and your companions are playing actual toys, fighting your own little wars and settling your grudges under the watchful gaze of various people who just treat you as playthings. And while you can play the game that way, that is not the way it is designed, and that is not the way it is intended to be played. Now, come with me on this journey. Let me tell you about the Plastos Federation and the setting of this game, and what you should actually expect if you want to play it by the book. Now, our setting takes place among the previously 5 nations of the Plastos Federation, which is a political and social organization made up of countries who banded together in the face of a new threat. They were at war with each other, as happens when you have a bunch of nations that live close together and they have competing interests. However, in the middle of this war, a new threat emerged. This threat is referred to as the Vespoids, which are gigantic insectoid creatures that started wreaking havoc among the various nations. And so all of them, upon seeing this threat, realize that whoever it is that wins this war, they're going to lose if they don't deal with that threat. So, an armistice was declared, at least a temporary peace was held together, and the existing nations banded together for mutual defense and protection against these gigantic insects. For those looking for a much quicker elevator pitch, think Starship Troopers by way of Plastic Army Men. That's sort of the situation you get dropped into. Now, when I say the world of Army Men, the world of the Plastos Federation, I refer to the living plastic people, or the resinous persons of this setting. They are not toy-sized as far as the actual canon lore goes. These are people-sized living plastic creatures. And the worlds they live in are also made of various plastic implements, and there's a lot of tongue-in-cheekness about it. You'll find Lincoln log cabins if you go out far enough from the cities. You'll find MREs come with the actual packets of quote-unquote flavor, which are the things we as living, breathing humans are told not to eat. But aside from those things and aside from those jokes, this is a person-sized setting. All of the individuals who make up your troopers are roughly people-sized. They are just living plastic entities trying to do their best in a living plastic world. And the Vespoids, well, they are a confusing threat that I will have to elucidate on in future videos if I want to give away a couple spoilers as to what their purpose is and where they come from. For the moment, they are a faceless, immortal hive mind enemy that, while you can fight and you can kill members of it, it's really difficult to keep pushing them back from the borders. But that is something that I feel is important for players to know going in. It's important for any game masters who might think about running this setting, because when you consider that you are not actual toys, you are actual people who have their own wants, their own lives, their own goals, it makes the game that much more interesting, in my opinion, because now you have to contend with things like, do you have family back home? What's your motivation for fighting for your country? not just a corner of a toy box, but there are entire cities, entire towns that could be ravaged by the Vespoids. And it asks the question of, what is your motivation? Why is your soldier here? What is your specialty? What are you hoping to achieve throughout your service? Are you here because it's a family tradition? Are you here because you were conscripted? Are you here because, well, the Vespoids hurt someone you love or destroyed your town and you want revenge, and you're more than happy to put on a uniform and say yes sir, no sir, if that's what it takes to get you to the front line? Now, I can go into further detail about which nations are based off which parts of history and which parts of technology you'll find throughout this game. I can talk about the individual resins that you'll find if you want to play different resinous persons. I can talk about my plans for the future, or even the genres you can play with this game. However, I wanted to keep this first episode fairly short and fairly to the point, and I wanted to do my best to hook those of you listening who thought this was just, well, a cheap knockoff of those video games you used to play in high school. So, let me know, what part of Army Men do you want to know more about? Do you want to know more about the setting? Do you want to know more about the conflicts? Do you want to know more about the timeline that we have up to this point, or the history of certain parts of the setting? I am here to answer your questions, and I will do my best to make sure that everyone explores as much of this place as they can, because I spent a lot of time putting it together, and I think it's pretty interesting. So as always, like, subscribe, share the video around, and if you have any questions, make sure you put them in the comments to let me know for future episodes. Till then, fall out and have yourself a good game.